Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Secret Men's Business podcast, season three. Season three. This is Joey Buzzertool down from Melbourne, Australia. And on today's show, we're going to go all the way to New York City, and we're going to be speaking to a specialist on sex and the way that men can interact with understanding their sexual energy and finding the power within. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to Sarrah Rose, a sex therapist who's going to really go deep into understanding men's needs and wants to find their sexual power. Sarrah, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. So good to talk with you.
What time is it there?
It's 5 p.m.
I love the fact that you're living yesterday and I'm tomorrow. So it's really cool when I speak to people in America and I'm saying, oh my God, they're like a day behind. So, but before we start, do you want to just give our audience a little bit of an introduction to you, like just a little bit about your background?
Yeah. So like you said, I'm Sarrah Rose. Great to be here with you all. Thanks for being interested in this topic, which is so relevant to every single one of us, right? We all have sexual needs. We all have relationship desires, to one degree or another. It's part of who we are. It's part of our humanity. And so I just love working with people and helping them really optimize in this area of their lives.
Yeah. Well, I was curious to know how you got into it. I mean, interesting how I always want to know why a woman wants to work with men and what was your turnaround to actually go, this is my calling, this is what I'm really good at. How did that unfold?
So, yeah, when I first started, I worked with both men and women. And then there was a period in time when I was just working with women. And actually, it was the women that I was working with that were like, Sarrah, please, please, please work with men. They're like, we really want men to have this information. This is what we want when it comes to sexual partners, romantic partners, please. And I had been in a 2-year relationship with somebody who had all of this information, and we were, exploring all of this in our own personal relationship. And then when that relationship ended, and I was back out there in the world again, and it was like, oh my God, they're right. Like, yes, the men do need this information. And so, it was part selfishness of me needing to fulfill my own needs.
Yeah.
And also, my girls being like, do this. And then, but really, like, I love working with men. I love providing this space for men to heal, for men to rise, for men to, realize how much that they matter in a relationship. I think that's a really key point for men to
True.
get is how much power they actually have in a relationship and how much what they do matters. The way that you communicate, the way that you show up, your presence in the relationship is actually really necessary. And a lot of guys just kind of, bury themselves in work or, have different distractions. Maybe it's porn, maybe it's the kids' after school sports teams, whatever it is, having a couple too many drinks. There's a lot of distractions for men
Yeah.
that keep them from really being present in a relationship. But
Yeah.
when you do that, no one is going to get what they
Yeah.
really want in
Well,
this
I was
relationship.
going to say, it's good that you brought that up because I think when people think of sexual power, they automatically think about the sex part, but you're, really highlighting the importance of the connection that you have with your partner. So, do you want to maybe just define, just in your words, like what is sexual power?
Yeah, so sexual power is something that I talk a lot about, and it's something that you actually develop in yourself. So all of us are born with innate power, but over time, it eventually gets crushed out of most people. If you think of a baby coming out of a womb, the baby is coming out with some power, right? There's lungs, and they're screaming, and they've got a will, and then eventually, like, you get past a certain period in time, like think of even a 2-year-old, like being super rebellious and the power that's in there. Think of a teenager. There's power in a teenager, but it's being crushed subtly over time, where it's like, okay, no, we have to conform. There's a certain way of being, there's a certain way of behaving. And yes, there are, ways of being in society that we all, in one way or another, need to abide by so we can live cohesively together. But there's a huge loss of power that often accompanies that, which really isn't necessary. And our sexual power is something that, for men, they're typically taught one of two things. It's either, in order to be a man, you have to fuck a lot of women, or there's the opposite of that, which is more of the shame around their sexuality. Keep your cock locked up, like don't have sex outside of marriage, that type of thing. There's not. I mean, society is shifting into having, some more middle ground there, but a lot of people still really have that conditioning of one or the other.
Yeah.
And so it's a loss of sexual power that happens.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're totally right. Like, it has definitely shifted. Like, I'm in my 50s, and I do have a few personal questions I'll ask you later. But like, one of the things that I discovered through COVID is that I didn't know that I was pansexual. And so that definition only is a new definition. And I always wondered why there was an issue with the way I was feeling. And then having that definition come, it really helped me to understand myself a lot more without the shame and the confusion. So, and you sort of touched upon this already, but why do you think men have those limitations versus, say, women? Like, I know that men have shame, a lot of shame, but is there any other reasons why men are the ones that have that inbuilt in them versus, say, a woman's emotional connection?
Yeah, I mean, women definitely have a lot of their own struggles and issues with sexuality, but they're in oftentimes the struggles can be similar, but there are differences, certainly. For men, there tends to be this conditioning that they have of like, don't stop, don't slow down, don't take care of yourself. It's weak to have emotions. It's weak to, have any type of sensitivity. You're not going to be able to get ahead. You're not going to be respected if you develop this part of yourself. But when I'm looking at an individual as being a whole individual, there's not just this intellectual side of ourselves, which is the part of men that is usually most developed. Like, their intellect tends to have the most focus. And then maybe the physical aspect of them having their second amount of focus. But the emotional side of them, the energetic side of them, tends to be really, really neglected. So if a man, say, just imagine if there's like 25%, 25%, 25%, 25% in order, to make up this whole person. And if your intellect is like your mental body, okay, sure, if you're at 100% there, great. If your physical aspect is maybe, say, you're like 75%. But then emotions and the energetics, if those are both only at 50%, there's no way that you are performing at 100% capacity. Like, you are not optimized as a whole individual, a whole human being. And so it's actually making you less competent, less confident, and less able to achieve everything you want to achieve in life if you're not developing all parts of you.
Yeah, and that is, I know that it's definitely changing. You mentioned earlier about porn, and like, I'm a therapist, and I see a lot of men as well, similar to you, but I don't like focus just on the sexual part. I focus on more anxiety, but like, when it comes to, say, things like being in the locker room and comparing penis size, or being told that, you've got to have sex this way by your mates rather than, I guess, be emotional, that sort of peer pressure that we sometimes get outside of ourselves. Have you noticed that comes with a lot of consequences when people go down a path that isn't really connected to themselves and doing things that other people, I guess, are cheering them on to do? especially younger
Oh,
guys.
of course. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Anytime that we are pressured to act in inauthenticity with our core nature, the truth of who we are, we're turning against ourselves. And that the body can actually register that as trauma. So we
Yeah,
often think of trauma as being some, massive acute experience that people have, a car crash or the death of a loved one or something big like that. And trauma can occur in acute ways, but it can also be chronic trauma, the micro traumas that repeatedly happen over a lifetime. And things like turning against your own nature, turning against your own body, not standing up for yourself, not taking care of yourself, not providing a place of safety in your own life, all of that can be registered as trauma. It gets stored in the nervous system and it creates this freeze state, the state of depression that a lot of people live in. It's a very contracted state. There's a lot of tension and contraction in the body. So, through the practices that I give people, a lot of it is helping release that trauma out of the nervous system just so they can feel in their body. Can you imagine having sex and you can't even really feel because you have so much trauma stored in your body?
yeah,
That's what
yeah.
most people are doing.
Yeah, and so and I'm guessing that then from that, then sexual dysfunction will occur, anxiety will occur, even um, like detachment, all those sort of things all happen. So I know it's a big process, and I know that it's not just come and see when you're all fixed and all that. I know that the listeners understand that, but what would be? Can you just maybe outline one or two things that you would encourage the listeners to think about to connect with their sexual power? Like, what could they just start doing today to start to connect? Is there anything that you may suggest?
Yeah, one of the things that I like for men to start to pay attention to is how they feel when they masturbate, like before they begin to masturbate, when they're masturbating, and after they have finished. What feelings, what emotions come up for you around that? A lot of people have so much shame connected to their sexuality that they actually do, like, they don't feel a lot of pleasure. There's a release that happens, but there's not a lot of pleasure. There's actually
Yeah.
accompanied by guilt or shame
And
or
and normally,
sadness.
like in this ad, like normally, the memory of being a teenager and masturbating at home with mum and dad in the lounge room is there's a lot of guys have this thing with I've got to do it quickly, I've got to do it really privately, and so it ends up ends up going into adult life, and they end up having all the things that you've mentioned.
Yes, absolutely. And so just starting to notice that and seeing if you can begin to shift your mindset and how you feel around it. Allow whatever emotions come up just to come up to surface. Let them be something that speaks to you, that helps you understand where you're at right now. And hold yourself with love and compassion and understanding, and don't judge yourself. And that will go a long way in starting to shift the way that you view sexuality.
Okay. Do you mind if I just add a few like things that men go through that you may just want to bounce some ideas with us?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
what would you suggest? I know I think that I'm getting a feeling that it's sort of like that is a really big thing, is getting to know who you are, connecting with yourself and feeling those things. But say for example, if someone has a small penis, right, and someone has laughed at them or teased them, and then they have this now reality that they'll never fall in love and never get a partner. So what would you suggest in regards to um, understanding that?
Yeah. So understanding that, yes, this person, may have said something, but really you are the one that is now creating your reality based off of that situation.
Mm,
So that person and what they did, they're only causing this in your life because you're allowing them to at this point. And the more
yeah,
that we take personal responsibility, the more powerful we are and the more that we can actually create and have what we really want in life.
yeah,
we live in a world where people do thoughtless things and cruel things, and we can take that and let it destroy us, or we can take it and take the power back and have the life we want to have. So
Yeah.
it's really just the mindset of, hey, like, this is my life and I'm choosing to live it in the way that is aligned with me.
Yeah. I guess you're really saying that this is who I am, this is my body, and it's finding acceptance because sometimes we live in this fantasy world of I wish I had something that like that man, or I wish I could be like that couple. But really, it's really about accepting, who we are. And you're like, that's a really good point, because I remember when I was younger, I had a sexual encounter, and the person I was having sex with turned around and said to me, "You're an amateur." And I knew that I wasn't experienced because I was young, but hearing those words really impacted me for a year. It took about a year for me to shake that off because of what you're talking about. So I can imagine a lot of men out there have these moments or have that insecurity because of how they were brought up, and then that really stops them from being able to tap into their real sexual power. Instead, they might come up with all these things that they think it's sexual power, but it really isn't. Um, I was going to say, would meditation, like, would meditation be something that you would suggest to your clients to find
So
that?
meditation practices are some of the practices that we do. Breath work is also part of it. So I incorporate different tantric practices
Okay, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
into the coaching that I do. Tantra is really great for helping men connect to their bodies, helping them slow down, helping them unwind the conditioning that they have and the struggles that they have around their sexuality. So I incorporate that. But meditation is, I think of tantric sex even being in a way like meditative sex, where you're in just a more connected state. Like, if you think about when you're meditating, you're doing your best to be fully present in the moment, and
Yeah.
like not having this escapist, like escaping into the future, escaping into the past, which is where most people live, is in the future or in the past rather than
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
here. And when you're meditating, you're trying to be right here. And the same with tantric sex. And so I give practices around breathing and the focus, their attention, the sounds that they make, the movement that they make, all of these things to come together to help them be really present during sex.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I hear a lot of men say to me in sessions over dysfunction is exactly what you're saying. They're not present, right? And sex should be fluid, and you should be having fun. Now, I know this is a really global question, but what do you think men need to know about women? Because I think that the biggest thing that they say when they have a dysfunction is, I'm really, really anxious about, is she having fun? Am I pleasing her? Which then causes him to disconnect, which means he can't get an erection. And then we have all that sort of anxiety. So is there anything that men aren't doing, or in your opinion, need to know so they can connect with their power better rather than guessing? And I guess also that would probably apply to also same-sex, gay guys. So is there anything that men need to understand so they can actually allow themselves to be freer, you think?
Yes. So, have you seen the new Sex in the City
Yeah.
that came out?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
did you watch the whole series?
Yes, of course I did.
Okay, so Che Diaz, I feel like that character really embodies assertiveness, boundaries, consent.
Mm,
um they know what they want, they're not afraid to go after what they want, and it's sexy. It is so
yeah.
sexy. Like, I'm bisexual.
I've always thought that that was sexy, but I think what I'm feeling is that men don't understand that. Men feel intimidated by that. I think, but I'm with you. I think it's sexy if everyone has that energy and that power, rather than there being this passiveness. Yeah, but, are women becoming more like that? You think? Yeah.
Well, I'm not even talking about the fact, I'm just talking about I'm not saying like non-binary, male, female. I'm just saying like that energy
Mm,
of like knowing yourself, that energy of being clear about this is what I want and I'm okay, like I'm going to have it. And I also have my boundaries, and if you're not in alignment with who I am, with my authenticity, then you got to get the fuck out of my life.
yeah.
And having that clarity, knowing yourself that well, that is sexy. When a man has that, when a man knows himself that well, women are like, I want that.
Yes. Yeah. And look, I mean, the next question, I want you to know that I'm open to everything, but I think I'm just talking from some men's perspective. Like, why do you think that what you just said, some men, even some women, unfortunately, look at that as being like a slut or being too, they sort of have this image. Is that because it's old stereotypes that we need to break down?
Mm.
Because it
So,
shits me. I don't like it, but it's definitely around in Australia, and I'm sure it's probably there as well.
so you mean
The
the
objectification of women, all that sort of stuff where it's double
uh,
standards. Like a man can be, sexually prowess, but a woman should be more demure. And you're, talking about Shay, who's very confident. It's like still, I think some people still believe that behavior is stereotyped. You know what I mean? And I think that needs to break down, which sometimes causes men to misuse their power, their sexual
mhm.
power. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's definitely those stereotypes of women. Like if a woman owns her sexual power, then she's a slut, she's a hoe, she's a whore, whatever it may be. And it is, there are evolved men out there, and then there are a lot that still have that kind of mindset. Um, what are we going to do about them? They are what they
Yeah, well,
are.
it's sort of like I think what we're going to do about it is we need to start talking to the younger generation, because from college and university culture has still got this stupid misuse of the power, where there's an expectation that a man can do something to a woman. So I think that's important to also understand that sexual power is it that word power doesn't mean that you have the right to control another person, right? It's about you tapping into your freedom. And so I don't know. I think a lot of young people nowadays have a different perspective on that. Well, in Australia, for example, there's a really bad sex culture with young people, and in reality, when we step away, it's really called rape, right? These men are raping these young girls, but the girls, yeah, it's messed up, and so I think the younger generation needs to sort of start early. Do you think that comes from the parents, or just social media, or society? Why is there that sort of mismatch at the moment with, say, younger people, younger boys, men?
I think that younger men are uh, a lot of times actually doing better. Like they're being raised in a generation where there are examples of consent, and it is part of the conversation that's
Okay.
happening. There is definitely, I think we have, of course, we have to continue educating, but when I look at masculinity, and it's a healthy masculinity where there's a lot of sexual energy, but that sexual energy doesn't have to be projected. So
Mm,
I work with a dominant, I am his submissive, and he has a lot of sexual energy, but he knows how to use it. He's judicious about that sexual energy. It is he's very much in control, and it's when the sexuality, that sexual energy, is in control of you rather
mhm.
than you being in control of it, that is when there's problems. That's
Right.
when we have situations such as rape, because it's this misuse of sexual power. It's not a channeled, focused, well utilized sexual power. And that's
Yeah.
actually not sexual power if you're misusing it. That's sexual abuse.
Yes. I mean, like, that's why I love New York, because New York has that energy of exploring. And when we come to like the middle of America, or we come to the middle of Australia, and we go to those places that they're still, a bit behind, there's still a long way to go. But I believe that we will definitely get there. So, in your opinion, like, let's go 10 years in the future. How do you think this is going to change? What do you think is going to be the landscape in regards to sexual power?
Yeah, I think it's something that we will continue to see progress with. And there's a big backlash right now around sexuality. And it's just because people are very resistant. They're very fearful of change. That's why there's so much resistance.
It's the
And
labels,
that's a
isn't it?
very natural human instinct to have fear of change. And so, while I'm understanding compassion of that, we also are modern humans with, evolved consciousnness and need to grow up, and like,
Yes. Oh my
like we're
God.
not out on the savannah anymore. There's not this predator right there behind you going to eat you. It's like, okay, if somebody is different than you, it doesn't inherently mean that they're wrong, they're bad, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
And that is part of the primal part of us, that primal brain, the reptilian brain that's wanting to protect us, but we live in a modern society now, and people just need to
Let
realize
go.
that. And like,
Yes.
there just has to be there needs to be more education. I
Yeah.
think religion is
Well,
actually does
I
a
think
lot of damage.
that's the main. I think I was just going to say, you like to reading my mind. That's the thing. I think religion is the main. I'm Catholic, but I had to leave because I had, I've got wanted to express myself sexually, and I was sick and tired of being told that I was going to go to hell. And I think every time something like this happens, it's that sort of group that makes us feel that, especially if you had a religious background, that shame continually is being stoked, and it comes up. Where it really is no one's business what people do. I mean, like, if people are doing it in the privacy of their own home, or they're doing it where they don't harm anyone, I don't understand why someone, especially a religious group, has got any right to tell people how to how to enjoy their life.
Yeah, and it's also the anti-science that comes from a lot of religious institutions that holds people back, that holds society back.
Yeah.
Because if you're demonizing science, you're demonizing progress. And if you're keeping children from being educated in the most optimal way, if you're teaching them things in school that are not showing where we're actually at as far as what science has proven, and trying to still, teach things from a completely different reality. I mean, if you think about, for instance, the Bible and the times that it was written for people during those times. It wasn't written for people during the times that we live in.
Yeah.
And so, just having a more evolved
Yeah,
mindset.
that's being modern. Like, I mean, in Australia, this is what's happening right now, Sarah. This is so disgusting. Like, a school has sent parents contracts, right? Contracts to sign to say that if your child is gay, that you'll be okay with the expulsion. And I just think, oh my God, and everyone is so angry, and it's so uproar, but it's just showing you how backwards some people are. And, to even get them to sign a contract to predict their children's sexuality. So, unfortunately, those groups sometimes, and it was a religious school, so sometimes those groups try to squash everything, like you were saying. It's really a control thing rather than letting them find their power.
Yeah, that's
Terrible.
awful.
So, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit less about how they can reach you? Because I know that, they might want to reach out because you are so interesting and you've got so much knowledge. And I think when you find someone like you who is so free, I think that's the thing. You might go to a therapist and they might not be free themselves. And so there's a bit of an awkwardness to be transparent. But someone like you, I feel like I could tell you anything. So how could they reach you?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I have done everything that I guide my clients through. I have put myself through it.
Yeah. Well, again, it's just the way that you say, like, you're very honest. So in this 30 minutes, you've already told us about you. You've got, you're a sub and you've got your bi. All these things make you just relax, and all those, I can just tell her anything now. So that's what you want. And I think that's why you're such a good therapist. So yeah. Do you do online work, or is it only face to face?
I do, yeah. So, and I have actually had quite a few clients from Australia as well. And one of my best friends, he's from there. He's from Adelaide.
Oh,
So
don't tell anyone that.
No,
no, it's fine. It's just that, Adelaide's small, that's all, but it's still great. I'm just joking.
It is small, but he's wonderful. He lives in Hollywood now, so he doesn't live there anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, my company is called Tantric Activation. You can find me Googling Sarrah Rose.
And I'll put everything in the links below so they can find you. And
okay,
I will just, if the time difference isn't this bad, this is 9 o'clock here. I'm going to refer some of my clients to you because I am having trouble finding someone in Australia who's got your energy. So I think that's going to be a really, really good fit. And I also wanted to say to you, I think you need to get more out there. I think we need more people like you talking so people can connect, because there's not enough people talking about this subject.
Yeah, there's really not. And I'm so passionate about what I do. And I'm fortunate to have a fantastic team that supports me and that, really helps me when it comes to staying ahead of the curve and really being out there, pushing limits, helping people where we need to be right now. Modern society needs modern help. Trying to continue to go about things the way that it was done 100 years ago is not solving any problems. It's time for a pattern interrupt, creating new environments for sex, for relationships to thrive in this current time. A lot of my clients are in monogamous long-term relationships, and this work helps them because this is what if you're not growing, if you're not evolving as individuals, your relationship isn't growing and evolving. If it's not growing and evolving, it's dead. And so many people are in dead relationships.
Yes.
And so, it's this work is really what we need right now. Sarrah has 2 R's, Sarrah. That's the one thing that you got to remember when.
No, you got to remember. And also she smells like a rose. Remember that.
Smells like a rose.
Yeah. Thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing. I've got a million questions in my head right now. So I know that I probably am going to reach out to you and ask you, can you come back, please? Because I think this is the thing that, people don't, I think that this is the sort of a good podcast in itself, just talking about sexual things. And I think this is the way that we have to move forward. So thank you so much. And we appreciate everything that you've shared with us today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Okay, everybody, this is the Secret Men's Business Podcast. This podcast will be out on Monday. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications of all our podcasts. We're coming up to almost 200 episodes. Wow, that's been such an amazing journey over the last 3 years. And we've got some really good guests for 2022. So make sure you do subscribe, and we'll see you all next time. Go and play with your sexual power. Bye.